Most people think the rich and powerful have a secret magic code. They think it takes rare talent or incredible luck to escape poverty and change your life. But they are wrong. Hundreds of years ago, a broke, starving man named Everard discovered a secret hidden in the freezing darkness before the dawn. It required zero money, zero luck, and zero magic. It only required him to do one thing while the rest of the world slept. In this video, you are going to discover the legendary story of how the 5 a.m. habit transformed an invisible beggar into the richest man in the land. Watch this story until the very end, because the old merchant's riddle at the center of this tale will completely change the way you look at your time, your goals, and your morning tomorrow. Let's begin. The story, The Man Who Left the Dark Behind. Chapter 1, The Invisible Man. Long ago, in a world of tall stone castles and powerful kings, most men lived by a simple rule. They slept until the bright sun forced them to open their eyes. To them, sleep was the only reward for a life of hard, painful work. They believed their struggles were written in the stars, and nothing could change them. This is the story of a man named Everard. He was not a king, nor was he a brave knight. He was broke, he was exhausted, and to the rest of the world, he was completely invisible. Everard lived in a tiny, broken shack made of mud and wood on the very edge of a busy market town. Every single night, he went to bed with a stomach growling from hunger. Every single morning, he woke up with absolutely nothing to his name. To survive, he took whatever odd jobs he could find. He carried heavy, painful loads for rich merchants. He cleaned the filthy stables of horses. Yet, the small copper coins he earned at the end of the day were barely enough to buy a single loaf of stale bread. Whenever he walked through the town, he watched the wealthy men. They wore soft, beautiful clothes made of fine wool, and they ate rich plates of meat. Everard often stopped and wondered, what do they have that I do not? Are they truly smarter than me? Were they just born luckier? Everard knew he was smart. He knew he was strong. Yet, he felt trapped in a deep, dark hole of poverty. He believed his misery was a curse he could never escape. But the hardest part of his life was not the hunger or the cold. It was the terrible silence. It was the crushing feeling of being completely invisible to the world. He felt like a ghost walking through his own life, watching others live while he merely existed. Chapter 2, The Old Merchant's Riddle. One cold evening, as the sun was setting, an old merchant stopped his wagon near Everard's tiny shack. The wooden wheel of the cart had cracked and broken under a heavy load. Seeing the old man in trouble, Everard walked over and helped him fix the wheel, using his strength to lift the heavy cart. To thank him, the old merchant offered Everard some warm food and invited him to sit by his campfire. As the orange flames danced between them, the old man did not talk about luck, and he did not talk about fate. Instead, he spoke about something much more valuable, time. Young man, the merchant said, looking deeply into Everard's tired eyes. The world gives the exact same amount of daylight to the powerful king and the poorest peasant. But the man who uses the darkness before the sun rises, that man gets to see the daylight twice. Everard scratched his head. He did not understand. What uses the dark, he asked. You cannot see to work, and the world is cold. The old man did not answer. He simply smiled, wrapped himself in his blanket, and went to sleep. But Everard could not sleep that night. The old man's words kept repeating in his mind like a song. The darkness before the sun. What did it mean? Finally, he decided to test the old man's riddle. Chapter 3, Meeting the Silence. That night, Everard went to bed early. He felt a strange fear in his chest. He was afraid of the freezing cold morning, and he was afraid of the dark. But more than anything, he was afraid of staying poor and invisible forever. Long before the rooster made its first sound, before the first bird sang its morning song, and while the pale moon was still high in the dark sky, Everard forced his eyes open. It was 5 a.m. The room was freezing. The darkness felt heavy. Every muscle in his tired body screamed at him to pull his thin blanket back over his shoulders and stay warm. But he refused. He pulled himself out of bed and stepped outside. The village looked like a ghost town. There were no shouting merchants, no noisy wagons, and no people to look down on him. For the first time in many years, Everard felt a deep, beautiful peace. He felt entirely free. He walked down to the rushing river and splashed the icy water onto his face. He did not have a plan yet. He simply sat on a rock, watching the dark water flow, allowing his mind to clear. Next, he walked into the empty marketplace. He looked closely at the wooden stalls. In the quiet darkness, his mind worked differently. Without the noise of the crowd, he noticed things he had never seen before. He saw trash that needed to be cleaned, broken wood that needed fixing, and the exact spots where the richest customers would stand later in the day. He saw opportunities hidden in the shadows. Then, the sun began to rise. As the golden light hit his face, Everard felt a strange shift inside his heart. For the first time, he did not feel like a beggar watching the rich. He felt like a master watching his own world begin. Chapter 4. The First Small Victory. Everard ran back to his shack. He remembered an old, broken axe head lying in a dark corner. He had a simple idea. On that first morning, he did not try to become a rich man. He simply sat down and sharpened his old tool. He made it useful again. While the other men of the village were still snoring or stumbling lazily to the tavern for breakfast, Everard was already walking into the deep forest. He had 2 full hours of hard work finished before the rest of the world even opened their eyes. He chopped wood, not for a mean master, but for himself. He stacked the logs neatly into beautiful, even piles. By the time the sun was high and hot in the sky, he had a massive pile of firewood ready for sale. He carried the heavy wood to the busy market. The other sellers were just arrived, tired and rushing to set up their stalls. But Everard was already standing there, ready to sell. A woman came by who desperately needed wood to heat her cooking oven. Seeing his neat pile, she bought all of it immediately. It was not a fortune, but it was his money. It was earned with his own 2 hands, using his own secret time. With those coins, Everard bought a real, hot meal with thick pieces of meat. He ate it very slowly, enjoying every single bite. He realized he had not just earned food, he had earned his dignity back. That night, before he went to sleep, he used a piece of charcoal to make a small mark on his mud wall. He promised himself he would wake up early again the next day, no matter how hard it was. Chapter 5. The Power of the Extra Hour. The next morning was even harder. His arms and legs ached from the heavy chopping. The morning air felt even colder. But Everard remembered the wonderful taste of the meat and the feeling of pride in his chest. He pushed the blanket away and stood up. Day after day, Everard chopped wood every single morning. It did not matter if it rained, if the ground was covered in frost, or if the darkness felt completely overwhelming. He became like a quiet ghost in the forest, working hard while the rest of the world was trapped in dreams. Slowly, his small coins turned into silver. He saved enough to buy a brand new, high-quality axe. With a better tool, he could chop wood twice as fast. He saved even more coins and bought a second axe. Soon, he realized a valuable lesson. He could not chop all the wood in the forest by himself. So, he looked for a young boy in the village, a boy who was just as poor and hungry as Everard used to be. Everard hired him and paid him a fair wage to help. With 2 axes swinging in the quiet mornings, their pile of wood grew incredibly fast. Everard was no longer just a man selling a few sticks of wood. He sold more firewood than anyone else in the entire region. The big merchants stopped going to the lazy vendors who opened late. They came straight to Everard because they knew he always had a massive supply ready. People in the town started to learn his name. They tiptoed around him with respect. But Everard knew the truth. They were not respecting him because of magic. They were respecting the disciplined man who conquered the dark. Chapter 6. Building an Empire. Everard's small shack was becoming too small for his massive dreams. He had silver coins jingling loudly in his pockets, but he was not satisfied. He did not want to just be comfortable. Comfortable was a trap. He looked past his small town. He knew of a large city located 2 days' travel away. That city was surrounded by dry dirt and had very few trees. The people there were willing to pay 3 times the price for good firewood. Everard used his savings to hire strong, grown men. He made them a great promise. Work hard for me, and I will pay you more than anyone else in this town. He organized a large caravan of wooden carts, loading them high with the finest logs. He led his men across the dangerous roads to the distant city. When they arrived, the freezing citizens welcomed them with open arms. To them, Everard's wood was as valuable as gold. He sold everything he brought in a single morning. He returned to his village with a large chest filled to the brim with gold coins. It was more money than he had ever seen in his entire life. But he did not stop to celebrate. He took every single coin and put it back into his business. He built a massive stone warehouse to keep his wood dry so it would not rot in the winter rain. He bought more carts, more tools, and hired dozens of workers. Now, when Everard woke up at 5 a.m., he was no longer alone in the dark. His men woke up early too. He had created a culture of deep discipline. Everard stopped chopping the wood himself. His job had changed. His new job was to think, to create big plans, and to find new cities to sell to. And he did all of this critical thinking before the sun ever rose. One day, he walked to his mother's old, broken hut. He picked her up and moved her into a beautiful new stone house with a massive, warm fireplace. She wept tears of joy, saying she never believed she would feel warm again. Yet, every single morning at 5 a.m., Everard sat in his quiet office, looking out of his window at the dark, sleeping village. He smiled as he remembered the old merchant's riddle. The man who uses the darkness sees the daylight twice. Chapter 7. The True Gift of the Dark. Many years later, the old merchant finally returned to the market town. He did not find a poor, starving peasant waiting by the side of the road. Instead, he found a wealthy, respected businessman. When Everard saw the old man, he ran to him and bowed deeply. "You gave me the riddle that changed my life," Everard said with deep gratitude. The old merchant smiled kindly and shook his head. "No, my boy. I only gave you simple words. You are the one who gave yourself the discipline." Everard thought back to his childhood days. He remembered waking up early as a little boy just to watch the beautiful colors of the sunrise. He had loved it back then. But somewhere along the journey of life, as the world made him tired and sad, he had started sleeping through it. He realized something profound. The sunrise had never changed. The world had never changed. He was the one who had changed. He had stopped looking at the early morning as a punishment, and he had started treating it as a beautiful gift. He walked through his massive warehouse. The wood inside was just ordinary wood. But the incredible life he had built was made from thousands of quiet hours that no one else wanted to use. He taught this exact same lesson to his young workers. "The first hour of the day belongs entirely to you," he told them. "In that hour, there are no complaining customers, no debts to pay, and no stressful problems. It is just you, your goals, and your mind." While his competitors slept in, Everard's business planned ahead. While others complained about how cold the winter was, his men had already built the fire and finished the work. They were always one step ahead. Success was not about being a genius. It was about starting before everyone else. It was about using the absolute silence of the morning to find clear thoughts before the loud noise of the day took over. Chapter 8. A Legend Formed in the Shadows. Eventually, Everard grew into an old, wise man. He sat by his warm fireplace, surrounded by his grandchildren. One evening, his eldest grandson looked up and asked, "Grandfather, what is the true secret to living a good, successful life?" Everard turned and pointed his wrinkled finger out the large glass window. Outside, the village was completely dark and silent. "Do you see that darkness?" Everard asked softly. The children nodded their heads. That exact dark space is where I found absolutely everything I ever wanted. But grandfather, a smaller boy whispered, the dark is so cold and scary. Everard laughed warmly. The dark is only scary if you have nothing to do. If you have a deep purpose in your heart, the dark is simply a quiet room for you to build your dreams in. The next morning, Everard took his eldest grandson to the very edge of the forest. He placed a small, beautifully sharpened axe into the boy's hands. Tomorrow, long before the sun wakes up, meet me down by the rushing river, Everard commanded. The next morning, before the dawn broke, the young boy was standing by the water. He was shivering from the cold air, but he was there. Everard walked up out of the shadows and placed a proud, strong hand on the boy's shoulder. You have just passed your very first and most important test, Everard whispered. You showed up. The rest of the journey is easy. The grandson learned the powerful habit. He grew up to be an incredibly successful and honorable man. He taught his own children, and the habit passed down through many generations. The village eventually changed its name and built a beautiful stone monument to the old merchant who had shared the riddle. But in reality, the monument was built for the idea itself, the timeless truth that time, when you grab hold of it, is far more valuable than gold. The story of the broke, invisible peasant who became a wealthy legend was told for centuries. It was never magic. It was a simple choice, a choice made every single day in the dark, before the rest of the world could wake up and tell him what he could not do. The lesson for today. Everard's old world of castles and wooden wagons is long gone, but his powerful rule remains alive today. The modern world is incredibly loud. It is filled with distractions, screens, and endless noise. But for a few short hours every single morning, the world is completely silent. The question is not whether you have talent. The question is not whether you will get lucky. The question is simple: what will you do with the silence? Motivation life lesson from this story. Here are the powerful life lessons you can take from Everard's story to help you build your own successful life. 1. The power of the head start. Success does not always go to the smartest or the richest person. It often goes to the person who starts first. When you wake up early, you get a head start on the day. While your competition is still sleeping, dreaming, or rushing to get ready, you have already finished your most important work. The lesson: you do not need to be a genius to win. You just need to start before everyone else does. 2. Silence brings clarity. The world is a very loud and distracting place. During the day, people are constantly asking for your time, phones are ringing, and problems are popping up. In the early morning, the world is completely quiet. There is no noise, no judgment, and no distractions. This quiet time allows your brain to think clearly, plan carefully, and see opportunities that other people miss. The lesson: use the silence of the morning to master your mind before the noise of the day takes over. 3. Small daily choices stack up. Everard did not become rich on his very first morning. All he did on day 1 was sharpen an old axe and chop a few logs. But he did it again on day 2, day 3, and day 100. This is called the compound effect. Small, simple actions done every single day add up to massive results over time. The lesson: do not worry about changing your whole life in one day. Just focus on winning tomorrow morning. 4. Comfort can be a trap. When Everard started making enough money to buy good meat, he could have stopped and rested. He was comfortable. But he realized that being comfortable stops you from reaching your true potential. He kept pushing, hired help, and built an empire. The lesson: never let a little bit of comfort make you lazy. Always look for the next mountain to climb. 5. You must overcome the inner enemy. Every single morning, Everard's body screamed at him to stay under the warm blanket. It was cold, dark, and hard. The biggest battle he fought was not against poverty or the other merchants. It was against his own laziness. The lesson: your mind will always try to choose comfort. Discipline means forcing yourself to stand up even when your body begs you to lie down. 6. The world respects discipline, not luck. At the end of the story, people did not respect Everard because he had magic or good luck. They respected him because he was reliable, strong, and highly disciplined. The lesson: stop waiting for a lucky break or a miracle to save you. Your discipline is the only true magic you need to change your destiny. The ultimate goal. The early morning is a gift. The question is, will you sleep through it, or will you use the darkness to build your dreams? Everard's world of castles and wooden wagons is long gone, but his timeless rule remains alive today. The modern world is incredibly loud. It is filled with distractions, screens, and endless noise. But for a few short hours every single morning, the world is completely silent. The question isn't whether you have talent. The question isn't whether you are lucky. The question is, what will you do with the silence? If Everard's journey moved you today, and you are ready to build your own destiny, hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you powerful stories of strength, discipline, and fortitude every single week. Right now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us. What time do you wake up, and what is your biggest goal for the next 90 days? Let's hold each other accountable in the comments. Don't stop your momentum here. Click on the video showing on your screen right now to continue your journey. Remember, the world can wait. Your destiny starts now. Rise early. Rise strong. We will see you in the next story.